first item on our meeting agenda is to review and consider approving the minutes from the November 2024 meeting. They look pretty good to me.
My only edit is Dan Roy wasn't there.
Here was that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Other than that, I move to accept the minutes.
I have a motion from Andy and a second from Doug to accept the minutes as amended. All those in favor? Excellent. Item number 3 on our agenda is the Apple Fest.
We can probably,
You want to
Do
do
the
number
different
4
one first.
so we don't keep Joe waiting?
yes.
Okay, we'll do number 4 first. Item number 4 is a request from Joe Kroll for a TIF district, affordable housing development TIF district. Hi, Joe.
Hey, thanks. Like that.
Come on up to
Appreciate
the
you guys
table.
meeting with me and letting me drop in here. I brought drawings, just in case everybody's not aware. So what ended up happening is I bought, called Hillcrest Estates. It's subdivision that's been approved since the 90s. The first round, actually, I think it was 91 or 94 that it happened, with an amendment in 97 adding on these lots. What they did is they developed Main Street and never did the road up back through to continue for the rest of the lots. So as it stands, what I bought is the 9 remaining lots in Sandy Drive going up through, with the rest of the land that goes with it. So the plan right now is, we're applying for Main State Housing Program for the Affordable Housing Program,
Yeah.
which caps the sale of the prices, based on the median income within the county. The county, for Kennebec County is $355,000 cap for anything sold. And it comes with restrictions for Main State Housing, but what that's gonna allow is if we get that application through, it will allow Main State Housing to give a kickback and help pay for the infrastructure being installed within the neighborhood. So what we're planning to do is it's currently the 9. We're gonna file for an amendment after we do our engineering and stuff like that to bring it up to 15 or 14, which you'll see on the second page. It shows, been working with Paul Roach, survey, everything. He did the original survey. And this is what he's drawn up as the potential 5 extra lots on the right side of Sandy Drive to round out that neighborhood. So what we're gonna be applying for with Main State Housing, out of the total 14 lots, is for 7 of them to be affordable house lots. Sold at that median price based on the Kennebec County, and then the other ones are gonna be market-based housing. So what we're looking at doing, as I said, we're currently already in the process of, we have lot 15, we've already started building a house on. We have lots 8, 9, and 10 already listed as our market rate houses. And we, as everybody has seen, we've already started bringing the sewer and water up into the neighborhood. So by the end of this month, we're gonna have lot 15. As I said, the slab's already done. We're gonna have the house starting being built and sewer and water are gonna be up to the first phase and into that section. We're using McGee Construction to do all of our utility work. That are familiar with the stuff around town. They did the school work for the city sewer and water. They obviously have been working with Paul and Dan on that. I myself, I'm a master electrician for 20 years, so I'm doing all of the underground utilities in there. We're installing underground everywhere. We're bringing fiber up in through the entire neighborhood and it's gonna be going to every single house. I've been a general contractor for 10 years also. We've built a handful of houses within West Gardner area. We've been doing them one at a time, buying a lot here, buying a lot there. But we've been searching for the last couple of years to find the right area to build out an actual neighborhood. And one of the things that I brought to Reagan, because we've been talking about this for quite a while, since May, long process with the bank to buy it. But one of the things that I like about this one, aside from it already being a done neighborhood, but with the size of, or the amount of lots that we'll get in there, we'll be able to make a nice community, because it's not like it's gonna be all of an affordable housing neighborhood. It's not like it's gonna be all of a market value neighborhood. You know, it's gonna be mixed housing within there to bring the whole community together. And then our next phase, while we're getting the engineering done for those next 4 lots, what we're hoping to do and why we're only trying to pull out this specific land for the residential is because we want to try and build apartment complex coming off of Route 202, as you'll see on the last page, what I hope to do with the entire 44 acres of the land. So that's why we're not trying to change the entire 44 acres. We're just talking about changing the existing subdivision and then the amended area also. So that way we can save the other area for the rural development TIFs or rural development main state housing program and possible commercial TIFs for doing an apartment complex in the future. So again, we have the 9 guarantee that we have permits for, can build as is, but we're working with engineers and stuff to amend it to the 14 total like I showed you there. So that way we can build the entire road, make it a beautiful neighborhood and, you know, go from there. But obviously 2,000 feet of sewer and water takes quite a bit of money. But again, you know, it's such an ideal location, one being the community that Monmouth is, but then also being the corridor there it is right by 202 and the access to Augusta, Lewiston and everywhere in between.
So Joel, at this point, you're requesting our recommendation to create an affordable housing TIF district for the, if I'm saying this, correct me if I'm wrong here. It looks to me like there are 9 existing lots and then 5 future lots.
Correct. Yep. So that's exactly, and that's what we're looking for is just that area for those 14 lots. Because again, as you'll see on the last page, we do own the whole 44 acres.
Yeah.
But hopefully the plan in the future, like I said, is to add apartment complex area over there that fall under the existing TIF district.
Gotcha.
But again, so that would be just based on those 14 house lots. And like I said, it's the 9 existing that are engineered, approved, designed, and that's what McGee's working off of right now to bring the utilities into everywhere and what we have listed for some of them. But again, we have to, based on the phosphorus calculations and stuff like that, we have to go through engineering to get anything else to be able to happen with the rest of the land.
And you don't foresee your 3rd phase expansion needing a TIF district, or would that be a different?
It would be, yes, I would, and that would be the existing one. And that's why we're talking about only changing this specific area, not the entire 44 acres.
So currently, this whole property is in your Main Street TIF district.
Okay,
And so,
so an apartment complex would actually
would qualify,
qualify for that.
but the single family affordable housing development does not,
Gotcha.
which is why, Joe is requesting that we carve out these lots and create an affordable housing TIF district but leave the rest of the property in the, in our current TIF district.
Mhm.
Because if at that point he needs, help from the tax reimbursement, he would be able to apply just using the current TIF district.
Gotcha.
And I do have, some revenue projections and tax shift, if we want to look at that.
Yep.
I did provide to Reagan based on this. So what we're gonna be building in almost the entire neighborhood is gonna be ranch houses. One, because it works for all people trying to buy houses. The affordable houses, we're looking at around 1,200 square feet. Every house is gonna be at least 3 bedroom, 2 bath. It'll either have a daylight basement because we have that hill right there, or it'll have an attached garage for storage space. All the market value houses are gonna end up being 1,500 square feet or bigger. We do have a couple colonials, hand-picked spots there because on top of that hill, we have an opportunity for some nice views shooting out once we clear out the trees. So we're talking about doing some 2-story colonials on 2 of the lots, but the rest of them will end up being ranch style houses.
How does the affordable housing designation work? I mean, it's like, so you have to sell them at the affordable housing cap, but is that in perpetuity, or is it if somebody moves out
So-
2 years, they can sell it for whatever?
No, so exactly. So great question. What ends up happening is whoever buys it they don't have to necessarily they have to have they can't be above a certain income level. And then when they buy the house, they have to have an agreement with Main State Housing where they have to keep that mortgage for up to 15 years and then they can do anything after that point. But if they sell it before the 15 years, Main State Housing has the opportunity to recapture some of the capital. Because what ends up happening is for every house that I sell within the district that Main State Housing or so the affordable housing ones, then Main State Housing ends up forgiving a portion of my loan based on those houses that I've sold. And my loan that I can get off of them is only based on the amount of houses that, affordable houses that I'm building in there. Doesn't matter about the market rate, it's all based on the affordable houses that, because that's obviously what their whole plan is and what they want to do. So like I said, and one of the things that I talked to Reagan about is the amount of houses within here. So obviously, the affordable house program with Main State Housing is just an application process and something that I'm hoping to have happen. The application is due January 15th. But if the town's willing to help me on these TIFs, one of the things that I wanted to make sure I do within this is, you know, the housing crisis is a big thing happening in Maine right now. And so market rate is great for me, but it's not necessarily great for helping people come into the community and stuff like that. So if I'm able to get the TIF help from the town, then I'm willing to still build those affordable houses regardless of whether I get approved for the Main State Housing application. Because again, like I said, one of the biggest things is I'm actually a real estate agent myself over the last couple of years to sell our properties that we build. And there's just not a lot in Maine that Maine families can still afford to buy. And that's one of the biggest things that we want to be able to do is, you know, 1,200 square feet is still 3-bedroom, 2-bath is not a gigantic house, but it's still a house big enough for a family. Something that somebody, you know, one thing that's happened a lot now is people who are going to buy first houses end up being long-term houses and they're stuck in smaller houses than what they thought they were going to be as their family is growing. But with putting these affordable houses with a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, it gives those family houses within a price range to still grow or an existing family to fit into. As opposed to, like I said, where the market has changed so much, it's hard for those families who used to be able to buy the first home knowing it was going to be just a stepping stone to the next one. Again, they're turning into 15, 20-year homes just because of the way the market has shifted.
So Reagan, can you walk us through these spreadsheets?
Sure, and I will also add, I'm not sure that if Joe touched on this. The Maine housing application for the program that he is going for likes to see additional sources of income as part of the application. You know, what other sources of income are there besides selling the house? And usually what they're talking about with that is is the town granting you an affordable housing TIF district? Because of, we talked about this last meeting, because of Monmouth's process for approving TIF districts, it's not possible to get this turned around by the time January 15th rolls around. So what we're hoping, and I've talked to Justin about this, is this committee will recommend that this go forward to the select board, and Justin is willing to write a letter saying that this is in process. And, you know, while he can't predict the outcome of the vote, that we do have other TIF districts in the community. We do have another credit enhancement agreement. You know, Monmouth is, you know, very much looking for housing, pretty much everything, but it's going to be approved by the voters, you know, and so to try and to help with that application process in some way that they recognize that he is pursuing
Right.
outside sources.
And would that be satisfactory for Maine Housing
Yeah.
if we can make some sort of statement? that says
Absolutely, yeah.
the
So,
work
and
in
that's one of the
progress?
things, luckily Reagan's been great and Paul's been great. A lot changed. So Main State Housing just dropped the application 3 weeks ago and it's a different application process than they've done in the years past. In the years past, it was when you're ready, bring your project in. It's an open door application type of deal. This time, January 16th, and it is a graded system. So the more prepared and the more finished your product is, the more points you get and the better you are on your application.
Right.
So we've had to adjust on the fly. We thought we were going to have a little bit of the springtime to do these types of things. But that is one question that we just brought up in the Q&A, and they did say that because of those time constraints, that a letter from the town stating that this is what we're working towards pending vote on this date, they will count it as, you know, successful. Or, yeah.
So, we can look at the revenue projection first. And again, we are talking about in this TIF district, with it all built out, all 14 units being included in the increased value. And I will say that I worked with Donna Hayes, the assessor, on this today. And she wants to make it clear that this is a conservative estimate of the value of this development at this point. So, you know, the 2.6 million will likely be more than that, and that is even before the revaluation that Monmouth is planning in the coming years. So that would also increase this, you know, these assessed values as well. So if we're looking at the TIF district starting on July 1st of 25, the increased real value being 2.6 million. Your mill rate at this point is 20.45 mils, which would create $53,000 in new taxes from the development. I talked to Joe about this today. We went through the numbers, and the 50-50 split was something that was acceptable for his project for the next 20 years, with Monmouth retaining the last 10 years at 100% tax reimbursement or keeping the 100% taxes for the last 10 years of the TIF district. So we can see how those go over Monmouth's column with 50%, and nothing would be going into the general fund from this project. Now, before we have questions, if you look at the tax shift analysis, the next page, again, the way that we need to look at this is what would happen if we did not create a TIF district for these properties. These are the shifts that would occur if we did not protect this new value with a TIF district. So the calculations are showing that your aid to education would decrease by about $17,000 a year. Your revenue sharing from the state would decrease by about $3,500 a year. And then the county tax has a multiplier, I guess you would say. And so on average, over the 30 years, your county taxes would go up about $12,000 a year for a total average tax shift per year of about $40,000. Now, the total tax shift, if we look at that, would be $827,000 a year. This is the part where we figure out that 50% is net, I guess you would say. So the total tax shift would be $827,000 over those 30 years. If you look at the capture back on the revenue projection of new TIF revenues at 1.5 or $1.6 million, that's about half of what the new taxes would be. So in other words, the town would get $1.6 million in new taxes, but would lose about $800,000 because of that new value. So in this
Unless it's
case,
sheltered.
right. So in this case, it makes sense to shelter the whole value and have the town incentivize projects that they would like to incentivize with a 50% reimbursement.
In fact, it would seem like if we were to follow the reimbursement plan that you worked out with Joe, the town would be in the positive by about $200,000.
Right. Because of that last 10 years.
Yeah, over the course of 30 years.
Yeah.
Questions? How's your math? An English major.
I didn't want to say he mentioned you were the spelling teacher.
I like always liked, if business that, you know, how it's worked for the. Sure, I mean, our first TIF district we did in 2013 was with a $20 million CMP substation that has worked out extremely well for creating, some economic development funds that are, you know, kind of earmarked for specific economic development
Yep.
projects, like the sidewalks, for example, they're gonna be going in on Main Street.
Yep. Well, that's the other thing too, is everyone in town has been fantastic. So the snowmobile runs through there. So I've had discussions with, Chad's a part of the trail system. So we've talked about putting trails into the other part of the property and stuff like
Excellent.
that. So. Yep, everyone's been fantastic.
Excellent. Yeah, if there's a way that we can, especially at this stage of the game where if we can have your ear during the design portion of the parcel, then we can accomplish quite a lot. I mean, I use this example at the last Trails Committee meeting where Chad was, and you know, we have a pre-existing sidewalk that we just replaced on Maple Street in Monmouth.
Okay.
It was 50 years old, totally neglected, hadn't done anything with that sidewalk. Parts of it were lost, you know.
Yeah.
And we ended up replacing it using economic development funds to get the job done. And the total cost, I think, was in the neighborhood of, I want to say like $500,000, $600,000 for basically one block of sidewalk.
Yeah.
And at the Trails Committee, we're talking about a number of development prospects around town. But, you know, if these homes were to go in, and there's no requirement to have sidewalks,
Right.
as I'm sure you know.
Yep.
But if we can find a way to provide, maybe not sidewalk quality surface,
Mhm.
but a trail system that will satisfy people and give them some means of mobility that's not
Yep.
necessarily in the street or on the road where it's a little more dangerous.
And that's what actually the neighbors, I don't know their last name, but Leonard and Joe, who we put the road right between, that was the first thing when we cleared through. He goes, my wife's so happy. He goes, she walks up here every night,
Yep,
you know, just because it's not on the main road, gives her a place to walk.
Yep.
And, you know, like I told Chad, it's like, if I'm able to put an apartment complex there, trails connecting to the school system is fantastic for
well, that's the
everybody,
thing,
right? You
right?
know,
And it gets kids off the road.
And that's exactly it. Yep.
And it gives older folks in town a place to walk.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
be outside.
So where are you planning on rerouting I mean, I see it says snow connector right there. I mean,
So that's not actually where it is.
Okay.
So it's actually gonna be fine for the next year or two. It wouldn't
Okay.
be until the apartment complex. It actually comes through somewhere right around here.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, so like I told Chad, obviously they can use it as is until we get in that area, and then we can talk about what we'll have to do to redirect it.
Okay.
Yep, no, that's obviously something I want to be able to keep, like I said, the trail systems, adding into the
Yeah.
walking trails too. and
Yeah.
Well, and it, you know, I'm sure it will help your residents and your property values if you're, you know, when you're putting things onto the market.
Yep,
Just because it adds a level of convenience that you can't find
Exactly.
everywhere.
yeah, well, and that, to be honest with you, that was one of the other amazing parts about it is, I mean, city sewer and water and, you know, rural thing, like, that's an amazing thing, you know? But you don't find that every day.
Other questions?
I just out of curiosity, roughly what size are the lots?
So currently, the existing ones are right around 1 acre plus or minus about
Okay.
1/10 of an acre. The new ones are gonna be just under that. Paul, I think he said these ones were right around 3/4, with that corner one being a little bit bigger because we have to figure out that corner of the road. We might be able to get 2 lots there, but so the existing ones are 1 acre, the new ones would be about 3/4.
And this is great. Yeah.
In this neighborhood, absolutely.
Yeah,
And that is single family homes.
I'm a mile from the school. I mean, like I said, we stumbled upon this land and it was exactly what we were looking for.
Right.
Yep.
But I know that there are a number of residents who are currently hooked up to our sewer system and water system, and they're looking for ways to diversify the membership in the associations so
Yeah.
that they spread their overhead farther and deeper.
Yep, yep, and that's what talking to Dan the other day, he was talking about the projects around town and
Yep.
that their board's quite excited about what might possibly happen and basically doubling their entire infrastructure.
Yep.
If everything can actually happen.
Seems great. Really like the affordable housing aspect.
Yeah, like I said, that was one of the big things. We've been working on this since, I think May was our first meeting that we had, and we were just been waiting for the bank for me to roll through and get the actual purchase, but then Main State Housing didn't actually drop the application again until just 3 weeks ago, so. But that's, like I said, that's been our goal the whole time, is to do a neighborhood and put out houses that people can live in and live in for a while, so.
We ready to make a motion?
Sure.
Is the motion.
The motion will be that if one of you would like to make it, as chair, I cannot, but if you would like to recommend to the select board, that this committee recommends to the select board that we create an affordable housing TIF district for these 15 lots,
Possibly 15, yeah, 14 or 15.
up to 15 lots at this particular location.
I recommend that what Kent just said.
Second.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion from Andy and a second from Mr. Ludwig. On the motion, all those in favor?
Great.
And the motion passes.
Great.
All right,
So Joe, I'll be in touch with you as I'm preparing this for the select board.
Okay.
It would, there'll need to be a public hearing and some other
Yep.
aspects of it, but we can talk about that
Okay.
later. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, I'll send you an email
Yeah,
tomorrow. Just follow up.
probably gonna be 2 or 3 select board meetings that would go by
Right.
before we can actually
Because of Christmas. and
put it up to a vote. and-
Yeah, and so that, like Reagan and I talked about, and I'm working with Genesis, who is a contractor for Main State Housing, who helps us put our applications and stuff in. And so that's basically, like we talked about, we did make sure some of these things, is the letter going to be good enough for now? Because
Yep.
again, the fact that it's not a walk-in application completely changes how all of us contractors have to go about what we're trying to show. And again, in an 8-week period too. So thank you very
Thank you.
much. It was nice meeting you. Thank you very much. Nice meeting you.
Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you. Thank you. Very nice meeting you.
Thanks, Joe. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great night. Happy holidays too.
Yes, you too.
Thank you.
By the way, our town assessor is absolutely correct to say that these numbers are super conservative
Yes.
because they are static numbers at $2.6 million. So that essentially assumes in this model where the town is in the positive for $200,000 over the course of 30 years, that this model is based on assessed values that are, by the time you get 30 years out, way undervalued.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
$200,000 of net positive gain to the town by creating this TIF district is the absolute worst case scenario.
And that's what we kind of had to, first of all, I mean, I felt a little bad for dropping this on Donna today. You know, and asking her to come up with a value for property that previously did not have a street, you know, and then adding different values and types of houses on it. So we just decided again that this is probably the base value that we would possibly, I think she said that the colonials were 203,000 and the ranches were 165,000, and that didn't differentiate between the 1,200 square foot ranches and the 1,500 square foot ranches, which are the market rate ranches. So, and I made that clear to Joe too. I said, you know, this, we're modeling here, we're doing the best we can, and it's a way to, you know, be able to, you know, I mean, realistically present it to the committee today, so that we could get through this process far
Yep.
enough so that we could get an application for him, but.
Well, it is a conservative estimate, which is fine. I mean,
It's better than being, you know, over the top, yeah.
overly optimistic, yes. And I'm not worried that the agreement that you've negotiated with Joe that satisfies his needs in main housing is quite a favorable agreement for the town.
I agree. I mean, if this is what's satisfying to him, and again, it's no loss for the town, you know, after tax shifts and things
Right.
like that. So we
Right.
might as well be investing in what we want to see in the town.
All right, next on our agenda, number number three, Apple Fest
Yes.
application.
So, as we all know, the Apple Festival went by.
And what?
And then I received a reimbursement request from Apple Fest. And when I went back to check, we had never received this application for approving the funds for Apple Fest. And I looked back in my emails and I hadn't sent them an approval that we had, you know, that the select board had approved. So I reached out to Merrick and said, you know, we did not receive an application from you, and the committee didn't review it and the select board didn't approve it. And so he sent this right over.
Right,
I don't know what happened, but I am presenting it as a retroactive approval.
Yeah.
Because, you know, they obviously have applied in the past and, fit the criteria for the process, but, I honestly don't know what happened, with the application, if someone forgot or what, but that's the request.
okay, so it's a retroactive application for the town to reimburse $2,675 of expenses.
Yes.
I mean, we've got a long history of approving these. Had it been in on time, had there not been a snafu, I think the answer would have been yes. So I'm,
Motion to approve.
here we go. We got a motion
And a second.
and a second. So a motion by Andy and a
We're
second
voting.
by Doug. All those in favor?
There we go.
There we go. Next,
Finally,
allocations for 2023, 24, 25.
so we started talking about this last month, when we then realized that what the town manager had requested was that we take the expenditures and approve the categories that they have been you can take one of each of those,
Sure.
had been allocated to. So I said we could certainly do that,
Soon.
but going forward, I think this committee would prefer to present a budget to the select board for TIF funds that are anticipated to be spent each year. Yeah, I know. I'm so sorry. This is just,
That's
Again,
there's too many.
figuring it out.
Yeah, there's too
No, I
many.
did the wrong thing again. What am I doing?
But we have.
Don't hover over me. You're messing me up, man. Making me nervous. I'm back in school.
23, 24, and then projected proposed 25. And I guess that this is the summary, okay, so this shows all of the expenditures on one sheet for the past few years that we're looking at, and so I'm fairly confident that I'm very confident that these expenditures as they've been listed in the different categories are correct. The difference is that our accountant, for example, had a line item in the TIFs for sidewalks. which doesn't necessarily match up with what our allowable expenditures are for the TIF application, in the sense that they had, okay, let's look specifically at number 7. Downtown area projects. The allowable expense for the TIF, from the TIF are streetscape and facade improvements. The accountant had a line item for sidewalks and a line item for building improvements. And those expenditures are actually in this one category. So it was very difficult to keep track of how much had been spent out of that category, because there were 2 or 3 different line items for the same category. So what we're doing now is we are consolidating all of the line items into their appropriate categories. And so we can keep track of how much money has been spent out of each allowable TIF expenditure. So I did that for 22, 23, and 24, and I printed it out for you because Justin would like that to be approved and sent to the select board, that those are indeed accurate. But what I think we really want to be spending our time on is the proposed 2025 budget for TIF expenditures, which on the TIF expenditure by year column is the last column, and shows what we anticipate spending in fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25.
Okay. So where should we start?
I know we've talked about this a bunch of times, but I just want to make sure I'm understanding. The total allowable for each line, is that for the lifetime of the TIF, or is that annual?
Lifetime of the TIF. So this Main Street TIF district is adding about $120,000 to $130,000 a year to our allowable TIF expenditures. So every year, the TIF district collects another $125,000 a year. And so the town is allowed to spend up to those amounts in the first column over the 30 years of the district.
Okay, so, I'm just, we've taken a moment to digest what these spreadsheets are all about. Um, uh, we're satisfied that the 2022, 2023, and 2024 columns are accurate. That's a question, not a statement.
Yes, that's based on what the accountant has identified as TIF expenditures out of the municipal budget. And so they have been assigned to the appropriate categories
Okay.
for the TIF district. And, you know, and again, just for example, I'm glad that we're doing this now. And if we do end up, you know, if the select board does agree to allow this affordable housing TIF district to get, to be created, we'll be amending this TIF district, and that is a good thing. Because again, if you look at TIF expenditures by year, and look at number 7, the streetscapes and facade improvements. At the pace that we're going with the sidewalk bond and the facade improvements, we would be running out of this category really quickly. But we didn't realize that because, again, the accountant was doing it a different, you know, wasn't putting it with the actual line items that we needed to keep track of. So what we can do is increase that number as we take the funds out of, as we take those properties out of this TIF district. And that will be just a single amendment that we won't have to worry about, you know, making a change, making that change independent of other things.
Gotcha.
But,
Making that change requires filing a document with the state economic development.
and a vote with the town. Yeah, it's an
Okay.
amendment to the district, so we would not want to do that
Right.
unless we.
Because we'll basically be tapping out that category by the end of 2025,
Yes, yes.
right? 100, 200, yep. At some point during 2025, we'll have that category tapped out.
Yep.
And the bond, I mean, it's not a big deal. The state has just gotta
Right.
stamp it.
Yep, it's not a big deal,
To recategorize
the funds.
the funds, but, and it's good that we're getting this straightened out before we go upside down in that particular category. But the bond has already been approved and it's chugging away at a rate of like 41,225 a year. So, the train is on the tracks.
Well, yeah, and if we just wanted to go through again, the TIF expenditures by year. So downtown area projects hasn't had anything funded at this point, but the professional, administrative and implementation costs. This number is higher because we're adding part of the town manager's salary and a part of Donna's salary. It's a very small percentage of both of their salaries, but if we can use TIF funds for it, then we should be.
Mhm.
And that's because we can use that because of it's the portion of their time that's associated with overseeing or assessing or implementing the TIF district.
Mhm.
And so that's why that category jumped up this year a little bit, was to be able to cover a small portion of each of their salaries. If we're going down advertising and marketing costs to promote Monmouth as a business location. I know that we have a new communication tool for the town, and so to the extent that we might be able to use a portion of these funds to offset the cost of some of that, because does fall under economic development. That's what that is for.
Mhm.
And then again, this downtown area projects, that includes our facade grants and the sidewalk bond repayment. So we want to make sure that we're allocating enough for that in a given year. Economic development events, you can see 22, 23, 24. The cost of those has been inching up every year. And so I thought that 6,500 would be an appropriate amount for the budget for 2025 for TIF funds. The economic development consultant and KV cog membership, that's obviously my cost, as well as, again, the KV cog membership is something that can be paid for with TIF revenues, so there's no reason to use general fund revenues for that.
Right.
And then finally, on the back page, there is a quote that Dennis has given me about this Cumston Hall Trail proposal that was requested to be put into this budget, although it could be used for any type of planning around trails, whether it's a study, materials to, improve trails or anything like that. But that is why that $25,000 is in that line item.
Right. So there's a blank in this year's 2024 cost associated, the line 14, costs associated with new and existing recreational trails. The 2024 cell is blank, but I know that the select board approved an expenditure of about, I want to say it was like up to, but we said a maximum of $10,000 or 10,500 or something like that. So there's a missing number there. It happened recently, not.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yeah. And so $25,000 is certainly within the ballpark of what the Recreational Trails Committee is thinking.
That number. And that, I believe, I don't have on here the total for 122,300, which is right around the amount that would go into the TIF district in a given year. Not that we have extra money in that fund right now, but this would be budgeting essentially all of the money for 2025.
Could I make a suggestion? And this is something that we might want to consider for this year. I realize that what's being contributed this year, what's expected to be contributed for 2025 is in the range of $130,000. And also keep in mind that we have an ending balance, because we've been accumulating funds, of approximately the ending balance is expected to be about $700,000. There is a grant opportunity that the Trails Committee is using that consulting expenditure from last year to apply for this year, and that grant opportunity requires a 20% match. And so if Dennis is thinking he wants to move forward with the Cumston Hall Trail, the Trails Committee might need some additional funding to be able to qualify for that match and accept a grant during the 2025 period, which really runs July of 2025 through, I mean, it's almost like 18 months from now. So I would suggest that instead of budgeting $25,000, that we consider budgeting $55,000, an additional $30,000 as a one-time this year thing. And what that would do would give us enough room to be able to pay out of pocket essentially for Dennis's trail down at Cumston Hall. And also qualify for the 20% match what we're applying for through the Trails Committee is, somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000. So 20% would be $40,000. That would put us, if we were to bump this up to 55,000, and that we would be in the neighborhood of being able to qualify for that match. I think the consultant fees are probably gonna be part of that, so we may not need all of that money, but just so that,
You're saying in the budget for 25, that's what
Yeah.
you want to project.
yeah. That if we're moving forward with this proposal and we're locking in a spending plan for the next 18 months, right, that we need to make sure that we've given the Trails Committee enough room to be able to qualify for that grant if it comes through.
How does it work then if we, because clearly we need to change the allotted in line 7. That's the most popular category.
Yes.
And I know that we just talked about the whole
Yep.
process, but like, does that mean if we want to increase that cap, do we have to decrease the cap of another category?
Yeah, yes, we would. And I think though, I mean, some of these categories are probably less realistic to get funded. I mean, so, and again, if you look at number 3, I left this on here in the last
What's CEA stand for?
credit enhancement agreement.
Ah.
So I have never, ever seen this on a municipal expenditure list. I don't know how it got approved, but I left it on there because I was intrigued because, you know, how did it get on there? But essentially, a credit enhancement agreement the town would never need to save money to give a developer a credit enhancement agreement.
Because we would only be agreeing to ones that are net positive.
Right, you would only be agreeing to ones that were generating their own new
Right,
taxes,
we're
and
not
then
gonna
you're
take the
giving
loss.
those new taxes back. You don't need to save taxes to then give to Joe because he's generating his own taxes with his development. So I think I'm probably going to just eliminate that. So that's another $215,000 that we can add to this. And then, you know, truly, when I'm putting together the application, I'll be talking to this committee about some items that we might want to move around because, and truly thinking, you know, thinking bigger about the full cost is $385,000 over the next, 15 years enough for the trail system, or is it too much?
Right.
Because it is so arduous to amend these, we want to really do some planning to make sure, and we don't need all these categories necessarily. If there are ones that people don't think are realistic.
I mean, even 430,000 at the rate we're going through what's been allocated for number
Right.
7, it's like that's 4 more years, 5 more years.
Right.
Yeah, no, we would need, and that doesn't even consider
More than that, still not that.
well, the Main Street sidewalk project, which I mean, the intention was to use a substantial portion of the $700,000 ending balance that we have in the TIF
Yeah.
account to make a down payment on the Main Street sidewalk project when it happens next year or year after. I'm not sure what the timeframe is.
What's that exactly?
Replacing the sidewalk along Main Street from essentially Academy Road down to Maple Street. It hasn't been done in 50-something years. They're gonna be reworking the roadway there, changing,
Oh, that's the
Changing.
Humston Hall side.
changing out stormwater stuff. And so it's gonna be a giant construction project. And our contribution to that is gonna be sidewalks. as it's been part of the plan for the last 5 years. And so at some point, we're gonna need to borrow the remaining balance to get that done.
And though, we're also again thinking about the reval in a year or two and what that's going to do to the values and the taxes coming into the TIF district also. Because that will be, that will be additional funds that will need to be spent within the timeframe of the TIF district.
So increases in valuation, right? The increases in valuation will contribute, will accelerate the funding of the TIF district. So this entire municipal TIF district, the one that was started by the CMP substation, but also included the downtown area, right? As we go through the revaluation, we're taking the basis and saying, oh, this is like the approximated 2017, I don't know, when was the last time they did an assessment?
I think she said 17.
20, yeah, but it was an approximate,
Yes, it was like not a full.
it wasn't boots on the ground, it was like, yeah, it's, add 20%
Yeah.
to this category.
Donna stuff.
Yeah, Donna stuff. But now we're finally doing boots on the ground, and the rules of the TIF district, that Main Street TIF district, for almost every parcel along Main Street from the railroad tracks, no, beyond the railroad tracks, from the post office to 202.
Yeah.
Pretty much it. Increase in valuation increases the revenue of our TIF district.
Yeah.
That's the deal that, we made with the state when we set it up in 2013, was any increases in valuation go into this special category that allows for economic development funding, essentially. Some within the TIF district, some is just across town, et cetera, et cetera. So we're about to see a substantial jump in revenues once that assessment is complete.
And although it will definitely hit residential more than commercial, but Monmouth is primarily residential, so.
And just for the record, because we're being recorded here, I want to make it clear that this is not going to affect anyone's what they're paying in taxes. Because that's a totally different, the assessment is basically going to determine what they're paying in. So any individual is still gonna, whether they're in the TIF district or not, they're still gonna pay the same amount.
Right.
What this essentially does is it shelters the increase in valuation from state and county taxation.
Right.
And keeps it within Monmouth.
Right.
So, originally, originally the district generates $130,000 a year. We would expect that to jump substantially once the assessment is complete, and it's not coming at the expense of taxpayers. It's actually coming at the expense of county and school and state taxation.
So I can make these changes on this 25 budget. And is there anything else that you want to consider with this at this time? And again, that the good news is I think it's great to have a budget so we can start keeping track of what we're spending and where. But if something comes up that is within the allowable expenses of the TIF district, we do have funds that can cover that if needed.
Just seeing that Garrett emailed us at 6, letting us know that he was trying to join through Zoom.
Oh,
That
shit.
we didn't let him in.
Sorry. I just swore on record too.
Oh, no. That's my fault. I should have been paying attention. Yeah.
I was just wondering if they're having a baby, aren't they having a baby?
Yeah, they were. That's
It's
what
like,
I
oh,
was
maybe
thinking.
they're having
I'm
a baby.
thinking, oh,
Yeah, you know?
he's in the hospital right now.
See, no, he's not.
No.
Okay, good.
No, he's not trying to join Zoom and having a baby.
Yeah.
That's something I
Okay.
would do.
Okay, we're ready to move on?
Yeah.
Other business. Do you need a vote on this? Before we move on? So we're looking for a motion to accept the budgets, the budget review from 2022, 23, and 24, and to accept our proposed expenditure allocation for 2025. Do I hear a motion in that regard?
I motion that.
I'll second that.
So we have a motion from Andy and a second from Doug for that, and all those in favor? Okay. And now we're ready to move on to other business. What other business do we have?
I don't have any other business, but if anyone else did, then this would be the time to share.
Nothing? All right, then last is an adjournment. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Yeah, great. I second that.
All those in favor? And the time is 7:04. Oh my goodness, we're 4 minutes late. Well, we'll have to do better next time. Did you fill out your Trails Committee?
I did that a long time ago.
Okay. I promised the committee I was gonna ask.
Suck. Do all the surveys.